Okay, now we're looking at NHL teams that are yet to win a Stanley Cup. So continuing with our theme of videos of teams yet to win championships, we're now looking at the NHL. There are 11 teams in total. 5 of them have never made a Stanley Cup final, but there are a fair few Stanley Cup final appearances. Out of the teams on this list, there's only, I would say, 3, potentially 4 that look likely to challenge for the Stanley Cup anytime soon. There's one brand new expansion team on this list with the Seattle Kraken. They had to be added, of course. They've only been in the league for 3 years, made the playoffs once in their second season. Not looking as likely this season to continue with that return to the playoffs. There's 2 teams on this list that have been relocated from their original location. There's 3 teams that have only made the conference final, 2 teams that have never gone past the second round, and there's a lot of Stanley Cup final heartache for the other teams on this list. So let's go in alphabetical order. We're going to start with the Arizona Coyotes, formerly the Phoenix Coyotes, formerly the original Winnipeg Jets from the WHA expansion of 1979. They made the conference final in 2012. When they were in Winnipeg, they never got past the second round, and they've generally struggled in Arizona as well to A, make the playoffs, and B, go anywhere in the playoffs, 2012 being their sole conference final appearance. At the moment, they're just on the edge, trying to get into the playoffs. They've had some playoffs recently during the COVID period, but they're still sort of in a rebuild, and the ongoing uncertainty surrounding the arena is what's making the headlines mostly with the Coyotes. Now we go to the Sabres, the rebuild that never ends. However, they've made 2 Stanley Cup final appearances. Now, they entered the league in 1970, the famous expansion where neither team from that expansion has won a Stanley Cup. They've appeared in the finals twice in 1975 and 1999. They had a very good team in the 70s and a very good team in the late 90s and early 2000s. But their rebuild has been ongoing for a very long time, over a decade now of playoff futility, because they've not made the playoffs in over a decade. Buffalo Sabres fans are starting to get very, very frustrated with the lack of progress with their team. Now we get to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They joined the league in 2000, been to the second round once, a couple of first round appearances, only ever won 1 playoff series. So yeah, the Blue Jackets, real lack of playoff success and playoff appearances. Futility with that team. We have the Florida Panthers. They entered the league in 1994, 2 Stanley Cup final appearances, 1996, obviously that famous run as underdogs, and 2023, another famous run as underdogs, because the season before they had been President's Trophy winners and fell flat very early on. 2023 finished a lot lower in the standings, get to the final, go on a run similar to 96 and come up short against Vegas in said final. But they look very likely to return sooner rather than later, and out of all the teams on this list, look like the most likely of the teams on this list to win a Stanley Cup for the first time. Now we get to the modern Ottawa Senators, who joined the league in 1992. Obviously, the famous Senators from the 1910s and 1920s won the Stanley Cup a fair few times. The modern Senators joined the 1992 expansion. They made the final in 2007. They've had some conference final appearances as well, but this is another team going through a lengthy rebuild. They last made the playoffs in 2017. Yeah. Bit of a lengthy rebuild. It's now 2024, so it's been a while since they've been to the playoffs, and the fan base is getting frustrated with the lack of progress. Very similar to the Buffalo Sabres, a lot of futility in recent seasons. Then we have the Minnesota Wild. They joined the league in 2000, made the conference final in 2003, and their postseason lack of success is well documented, and they look like they're either going to miss, or if they do make the playoffs, they're going to have to make it via the wild card. And yeah, there's the potential of this team going into a rebuild. Either they have a second half season, run and make the playoffs and do something in the playoffs, but their lack of playoff success is quite noticeable because they've only had the 1 conference final appearance since they've been in the league. Then we get to the Nashville Predators. They joined the league in 1998. They made the final in 2017 against all odds. Since 2017, it's been a bit of a slow, gradual decline. But that run in 2017 was an underdog run. They were 8th seed in the West, weren't expected to go that far, and went on a nice long run, ultimately losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins in said Stanley Cup final. San Jose Sharks joined the league in 1991. They made the Stanley Cup final the season before in 2016. They've had a fair few conference final appearances, a lot of second round appearances. They've got a pretty decent playoff record. But again, this is a team going through a rebuild right now, and it's a messy rebuild, and the team isn't very good. They had a disastrous start to the season. Now, they're not bottom of the league right now, but they're not making the playoffs. and they're in the midst of a rebuild. They don't look likely to win a Stanley Cup anytime soon unless they have a miraculous season next year. They're in a rebuild, so very similar to Ottawa and the Sabres. They're not winning a Stanley Cup anytime soon, and Columbus, who are also struggling this season. The Seattle Kraken only joined the league in 2021. They made the playoffs last year, made the second round. They're outside the playoffs at the moment, but there's a chance they could get on a bit of a run, make a wildcard spot. So, question mark with the Kraken, but they're a new team. But they've got the Vegas Golden Knights to live up to as an expansion team. Of course, the Golden Knights made the Stanley Cup final in their first ever season. First team to do that since 1967-68 with the St. Louis Blues, and they win the Stanley Cup in only their sixth season in existence. So, a lot to live up to for the Kraken, but they're looking a little bit unlikely at the moment with how this season's panning out. But they had a very good season last year and made the playoffs in only their second season. So, as expansion teams go, not bad going, but they have a very hard act to follow with the Vegas Golden Knights, and to a certain extent the Florida Panthers as an expansion team making the final in their second season. Kraken got a lot to live up to. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, they've had the most Stanley Cup final appearances on this list, 3 in total. They joined the league alongside Buffalo in 1970. It took them 12 years to make a Stanley Cup final appearance, so it took them longer. Buffalo took only 5. 1982 was their first. It took them another 12 years to make their second Cup final appearance. That was in 1994. And their final Stanley Cup final appearance was in 2011. They've had struggles in the playoffs since 2015. I think only one playoff appearance since 2015. A lot of struggles, though. This season, they're doing really, really well. They are going to be a playoff team. Can they back it up in said playoffs this year? Now, in 94 and in 2011, there were, of course, very famous riots when they lost the Stanley Cup final. Now, the riots in 2011 dwarfed those in 94, and 94 were bad. 2011 said, hold my... Now, I don't know what Vancouver Canuck fans' beer of choice is it. Is it Molson's, Coors, Canadian Mist, or is it Labatt's? I'm going for Labatt's because Molson's is more of a Montreal, Toronto beverage. I would say they're Labatt's drinkers because they're from British Columbia, just as a hint. But basically, 94 was like, let's have a riot, and in 2011 they said, let's hold that beer and double down on what we did in 94. But this is a team that's gone through a lot of playoff heartache, but this season are looking really, really good with the performances they've put in. And finally, the team that I follow, my favourite team, the Winnipeg Jets. Now, they joined the league in 1999 as the Atlanta Thrashers. They're relocated in 2011. Before they relocate, one playoff appearance, getting swept in the first round in 2007. Since they have been in Winnipeg, they've made the playoffs quite consistently. Their first playoff appearance was in 2015. They made a conference final in 2018. They've only missed the playoffs one season since 2018. They've had a couple of second round appearances, but in total, one conference final appearance. Although this season they've had a brief blip with a bit of a losing streak, which they've just snapped. They are doing quite well this season in the Central Division. They are going to be a playoff team. The gap in points they have over the wild cards in the West is massive, and their schedule doesn't look that tough on the run in. I've got similar vibes to 2018. I think this team could go on a run in the playoffs this postseason, but again, much like Arizona, much like Minnesota, that lack of going to the Stanley Cup final is very, very noticeable. The one conference final appearance stands out, and it's been a lot of futility for a long period, although in more recent times they are regularly getting in the playoffs. If and when that rebuild happens, it's going to happen. Will Cheryl Dayoff be the general manager? I don't think so. I think a different general manager will be doing the rebuild if and when it comes. But they're looking tasty this season. So out of the teams on this list, I think Florida, the Panthers, the Canucks, the Jets, and potentially I think the Kraken if they turn things round and they've got a pretty strong team. I think they're underperforming, but I think at the moment only 3 teams look contenders for a Stanley Cup. I think the Jets, the Canucks, and the Panthers this season look quite tasty. They've got to translate that regular season play into the postseason. But I think the Florida Panthers are the most likely to win the Stanley Cup next, but there's 11 teams to choose from. Who do you think is going to be the first-time Stanley Cup winner? Place in the comment section below. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.